Hello everyone. So today I wanted to talk about this test and it's called the Adverse Childhood Experience and it's called ACE. And in this test the doctors will want to know if there was this or that sort of abuse in your life that has come up as a physical illness or a mental illness. You could be anxious, you can be depressed, and so when they do this ACE test, which stand for the Adverse Childhood Experience, so you may have like one or two or three or five of the point that they made or question they asked, and so that will point out to the abuse that you have suffered, and it comes up as a disease, as an illness. It could be mental or physical. And I will put on the description below a TED talk that is very interesting, and it points out very clearly about what sort of abuse is in the test. But when I went and tried the test and I read through it, everything is quite straightforward. You know it's abuse, you know it's neglect, because it's gross abuse and neglect. But I would like to talk a bit about what I call another sort of abuse. And I call it the grinder. Like when you grind something. So what comes to my mind about the grinder abuse is like a huge, immense rock. And that rock is there standing, the little things that happen every day. There is rain, there is wind, there is perhaps the waves, and you wouldn't think, but at the end this big rock has been grinded, and now it stands like sand. And that's the allegory that comes to my mind when I think about the abuse I call the grinder. So there is many and varied sort of grinder abuse, as I call it. But let's start, for example, the ignoring. So perhaps the parents or step-parents or the guardian of a child ignores, the ignoring one. So they ignore achievements, but they can ignore as well your failures. Or they acknowledge only your failures. Make light of your complaints. Never praising your achievements. Never ever praising your good behavior. And that's a biggie one. That's a big one. When you praise the good behavior of a child, you build up the good behavior. And if you don't, that's a big grinder there. Or even praising your bad behavior if you're a child. They praise the bad behavior. They allow it. By hence, they are building up the bad behavior of that child. That's a big one. So usually what happens if the doctor is aware of the consequences of physical and mental abuse, and I mean in the gross neglect and gross abuse, the doctor will do the ACE test. So that is the Adverse Childhood Experiences. And so when it is the things that you suspect, and there it comes up. It's very straightforward. But what happened with the grinding ones? It will never make it to the ACE test, right? And so if the doctor suspects that your ailment comes from abuse, and they do the test, you won't qualify at all. So The grinding abuse, as I call it, won't make it to the social services, the children's services, police, or anything like that. It would never make it. And yet, this child or this teenager or this adult is a wreck. So let me see through my little notes. And so we have a lot of grinders. And it comes up in many and varied forms. But let's talk about, for example, parents who want their children to achieve their own dreams. And I'm not talking about the own dreams of the child, but the own dreams of the parents. And so just to do an example, I'm going to talk about, for the girls, the pageant shows. I mean, you know, where the girls are going to be judged for their beauty. So this is the parents who bring the girls and in skimpy outfits to parade in front of adults. Not only that, but on full makeup. And these girls are only, I don't know how old are they, from 3 to 5 to 6 years old, no more, I would say. This is gross neglect and abuse, yet it wouldn't qualify, right? After all, they're making the girls so beautiful. So what happened with these girls based them their self-esteem in their beauty? We're talking here very small children who have no say on it. This is gross neglect and abuse. At the end, there is one winner and the rest, 99%, are losers. They're not so beautiful. Gross neglect, grinder. And we have again the parents who want to achieve sport dreams through the children again. Gruesome and hard sport exercise, constantly thinking about just the sport achievements. And so the parent usually, sorry to say, could in that case it's more a man things probably, but women too. And you see them screaming. You know, the children are playing football, for example, and mom and dad are screaming, and they even have fighting between them. That's terrible. A grinder. Never will make it to the A's either. Now, another big grinder, favoritism. So there is the favorite one. And I'm not talking the scapegoat and golden child here situation where the golden child is given everything and the scapegoat is neglected and grossly neglected. No, I'm talking about subtle abuse. It comes in many and varied forms, and no one can show that there was abuse, but it is a constant grinder in which the favorite receive always more praise, better things, everything you can think about, always the best goes to the favorite. Yet the other one is not neglected, so no one can point out a neglect. Big grinder there. Now, the praising ones, another grinder, because they praise, but. So Sue, from Sue's Journey, has a really great video about it. I love you, but. You should watch that one. So they will come to you and to the child, and they will praise. Oh yes, they will praise. That was great, but. And if people around these parents will be around, for example, they could never point out at any abuse. Oh, they praise their child all the time. But. But. So everything is but. So when they do that, and they're around people, they will say things like, sweetie, you should do this. Sweetie, you didn't do that. Love, they use all the expression of love, but, you know. So that's a big grinder there, because they're taking away. A child, when you are saying to them, sweetie, they expect an expression of love. They don't expect an expression that will take away that love. So it's a constant grinder, yet another one who wouldn't make it to the ACE test. And we have another big one. So these parents want their children to be the best at everything. Everything. There is no room for failure. There is no room for being human. There is only room for success. And we have the children who excel in everything. Sport, school, everything. Their life is scheduled like a military life. They have a schedule for fun, a schedule to watch TV, a schedule to call their friends, and certainly a schedule for sport and study. These children, and I'm talking in all the cases about extreme, these children are not allowed to have a life of their own. They have been robbed of their childhood, and they have been robbed of their teenage years. So if this child who is a high achiever at school, always having A grades, always excelling at sport, being the captains of their classes, and all that jazz, they have been robbed. So one day when they go to a doctor and they are a mental wreck, and the doctor will look at them, they will never ever suspect abuse, because they have the best of everything, and yet they are a mental wreck. So what's going to happen, unfortunately, is like, instead of going through the psychological and talk, they're going to go straight away to the medicine. They're going to go to the pills, which we know are going to create again another problem. So none of these cases that I have spoken about are going to make it to the ACE or Adverse Childhood Experience test. None of them. And yet all of them are abusive. So this is what I call the grinder, because it grinds you to the bones. And one day you're going to have depression and anxiety, and there is no way you're going to point out to abuse. No way. No doctor, not even yourself. So it's just like, to me, it's just like the standing rock there. And one day it's sand. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.